What if I told you that the map of the world as you know it is a lie, or at least a temporary snapshot in time? What if I told you that just 20,000 years ago, a blink of an eye in geologic time, the world looked completely different? That huge stretches of land now hidden beneath hundreds of feet of water were once home to our ancestors? And what if I told you that this lost world was swallowed by the sea in a series of cataclysmic events that made the oceans rise at a terrifying rate? This isn't a disaster movie script. This is the recorded history of our planet, written in the rocks and the ice. Today we journey back in time to uncover the drastic sea level changes that redrew our planet and may hold a chilling warning for our future. Before we dive deeper into this lost world, if you enjoy uncovering these incredible stories from our planet's past, please take a moment to hit the like button and subscribe for more content. To understand how the world was lost, we first have to understand the world that was. 20,000 years ago, humanity lived in a profoundly different environment, the last glacial maximum. This wasn't just a colder world, it was a world where water was held captive. Massive ice sheets, some several kilometers thick, covered vast portions of the globe. The Laurentide ice sheet buried much of Canada and the northern United States, while the Eurasian ice sheet stretched across northern Europe. So much of Earth's water was locked up in this ice that global sea levels were about 125 to 135 meters, or over 400 feet, lower than they are today. Just think about that. Coastlines were tens, even hundreds of miles further out. Australia was connected to New Guinea and Tasmania, forming a single massive continent called Sahul. Britain wasn't an island. It was just the northwestern corner of Europe, connected by a vast habitable landscape we now call Doggerland, which is lost beneath the North Sea. This was the world our Stone Age ancestors knew. They walked across the Bering Land Bridge from Asia to the Americas, a landmass now submerged beneath the Bering Strait. They hunted mammoths and lions across the rich plains and rivers of Doggerland. They built their lives on coastal plains that are now deep underwater. They had no idea the very ground beneath their feet was temporary, and that the greatest transformation their world had ever seen was about to begin. Around 19,000 years ago, the planet's great ice age began to wane. As temperatures slowly climbed, the colossal ice sheets began to melt. But this wasn't the gentle, steady process you might imagine. For thousands of years, the rise was relatively slow. But hidden within this great melt were episodes of shocking violence. The end of the Ice Age wasn't a graceful thaw, it was a series of catastrophes. The Earth's climate system, pushed to a tipping point, was about to unleash meltwater pulses, terrifyingly rapid bursts of sea level rise that would drown coastlines and redraw the map in mere centuries. Our ancestors were about to witness the drowning of their world. The first and most violent of these events is known to science as Meltwater Pulse 1A. It kicked off around 14,600 years ago, and it was a global deluge of almost unimaginable scale. Over the course of just 400 to 500 years, global sea levels shot up by as much as 16 to 18 meters. That's up to 60 feet. To put that into perspective, the current rate of sea level rise, which is causing significant global concern, recently hit about 4.6 millimeters per year. During Meltwater Pulse 1A, the rate of rise peaked at an astonishing 40 to 60 millimeters per year. It was 10 times faster than what we're experiencing today. Entire coastlines would have visibly vanished not over generations, but within a single human lifetime. Imagine watching the sea advance by feet, not inches, every single year. The source of this torrent has been a major scientific debate, but it was the catastrophic collapse of the great ice sheets. For a long time, the Laurentide ice sheet over North America was seen as the main suspect. However, recent research suggests that the Eurasian and even Antarctic ice sheets also made major contributions, making it a truly global event. It wasn't a slow melt, it was a dynamic failure. Vast lakes of meltwater likely burst free, and ice cliffs the size of mountain ranges collapsed into the ocean. The world our ancestors knew was being violently erased. If you find this journey into our planet's catastrophic past as mind-bending as I do, take a moment to hit that subscribe button. We're going even deeper into the mysteries of our planet's history, and you won't want to miss what comes next. Just as the world was rapidly warming, the climate system slammed on the brakes. Around 12,900 years ago, the planet, particularly the northern hemisphere, plunged back into a sudden and brutal cold snap. This period is called the Younger Dryas. In places like Greenland, temperatures plummeted by as much as 10 degrees Celsius in just a few decades. Glaciers that had been retreating began to advance again. What caused it? The leading hypothesis points to the very meltwater that had been driving the sea level rise. A massive influx of fresh water, possibly from the bursting of a gigantic glacial lake in North America, is thought to have poured into the North Atlantic. This flood of fresh water, being less dense than salty ocean water, would have effectively shut down the Atlantic's ocean conveyor belt, a current system that brings warm water north. With the heat transport system broken, the North froze. During this 1,000-year-long deep freeze, the rapid sea level rise slowed significantly, though it didn't stop completely. For the people living through it, it must have seemed like the world was returning to the old ways of the Ice Age, but it was a deceptive calm. The planet's warming trend was merely on pause, and the ice was waiting. The end of the Younger Dryas was as abrupt as its beginning. Around 11,700 years ago, the climate switch flipped again. Temperatures shot up, the ocean conveyor belt restarted, and the melting resumed with a vengeance. This triggered new, though less severe, meltwater pulses. It was during this period of renewed rapid rise that one of the most famous lost landscapes finally met its end. Doggerland, the Great Plain connecting Britain to Europe, had already been shrinking for millennia. Then, around 8,200 years ago, a final cataclysm may have struck. A massive underwater landslide off the coast of Norway, known as the Storegga Slide, triggered a powerful tsunami. While researchers debate its exact impact, this wave would have washed over what was left of Doggerland, a devastating blow to its remaining Mesolithic population. Soon after, continued sea level rise submerged the last islands for good, severing Britain's physical link to Europe and entombing a lost world beneath the waves. Is it any wonder that ancient cultures around the globe, from Mesopotamia to the Americas, have flood myths in their foundational stories? For generations of people living on the rapidly changing coastlines of the post-Ice Age world, cataclysmic floods weren't a myth. They were a terrifying, lived reality. After the last vestiges of the great northern hemisphere ice sheets finally melted away around 7,000 to 6,000 years ago, something remarkable happened. The seas began to stabilize. For the next several thousand years, the rate of global sea level rise slowed to a crawl, though some regional variations continued. It was in this newfound coastal stability that much of human civilization as we know it was built. The great river valley civilizations of Egypt, Mesopotamia, and the Indus Valley flourished. Coastal ports became centers of trade and power. Humanity built its world on the assumption of a predictable shoreline. For millennia, this assumption largely held true. But in the mid to late 19th century, something began to change. After thousands of years of relative calm, the sea level began to creep up again. Since about 1880, the global average sea level has risen by 21 to 24 centimeters, or about 8 to 9 inches. That might not sound like much, but the crucial word is acceleration. The rise is getting faster and faster. This new pulse of rising water isn't being driven by the end of an ice age, but by an unprecedented new force on the planet: industrial human civilization. The rate of sea level rise has more than doubled since the 20th century. Satellite data shows that global sea levels have risen over 10 centimeters, about 4 inches, just since 1993. The current rate has accelerated to over 4.5 millimeters per year. This modern rise is driven by two main factors, both caused by a warming planet. First, as the oceans absorb over 90% of the extra heat trapped by greenhouse gases, the water itself expands. Second, and more ominously, the world's remaining ice, mountain glaciers, and the colossal ice sheets of Greenland and Antarctica are once again melting. While today's rates don't yet match the sheer fury of Meltwater Pulse 1A, they are entirely unprecedented in the context of the last few millennia of stable civilization. The changes that once took centuries are now happening in decades. The forces at play are the same, but the trigger is now us. We are, in effect, creating our own meltwater pulse, albeit one that is, for now, much slower than the most extreme pulses of the past. The history of our planet's oceans is a dramatic, often violent story. It tells us that the world map is not static. It's fluid and subject to drastic, rapid change. We've journeyed from a world of ice with seas over 400 feet lower, witnessed the cataclysmic meltwater pulses that drowned vast landscapes in centuries, and seen how a rare period of stability allowed our civilization to rise. Now, that stability is over. We have awakened the sleeping giants of the ice sheets and are warming the oceans at a staggering rate. The ghosts of Meltwater Pulse 1A are a profound warning written into the geological history of our planet. They show us how quickly the climate system can change and how devastating the consequences can be. The question is no longer if the seas will continue their drastic rise, but how fast, and whether we, unlike our ancestors, can do anything to influence the outcome. What are your thoughts on this incredible history? Does learning about these past cataclysms change how you view our current situation? Let me know in the comments below. If you found this deep dive fascinating, please hit that like button. And be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss our next exploration into the forces that shape our world. Thanks for watching.